So picture this. It's 1942, and the absolute greatest, most terrifyingly meticulous military machine in human history is marching directly on Moscow.
Right.
And I mean, every single logistical detail had been completely solved, by some of the most brilliant strategic minds alive at the time.
Oh, yeah. Supply lines, troop rotations, mechanical
Yeah.
redundancy.
Exactly. It was all totally mapped out. But that grand calculation failed entirely. And the wild thing is, it didn't fail because of some superior counter strategy.
Oh, no.
It failed because the ambient temperature just simply dropped a few weeks earlier than usual. Winter arrived, and this perfect human plan was literally frozen solid.
It is honestly the ultimate historical reminder of a very uncomfortable truth, which is that our plans, no matter how, perfectly engineered they seem to us, they exist at the absolute mercy of an indifferent environment.
Yeah, they really do. Well, welcome to Deep Dive, everyone. Today we have a really fascinating mission. We are looking at a provocative 2025 essay by a writer named Xu Feng titled Spiritual Awakening. Man's calculation is not as good as heaven's calculation.
It's quite a title.
It really is. And our goal for this deep dive is to explore this age-old tension between human ambition, our desperate need to engineer our own destinies, and the overwhelming, unpredictable force of nature.
Right.
So we're asking you, the listener, to sit back and reflect on a question that is actually kind of terrifying when you dig into it, and that is, how much control do you actually have over your own life?
Which is the exact question Xu Feng's central thesis tackles.
Yeah.
He argues that human scheming, our meticulous life planning, and that specific trait we proudly call shrewdness, they're actually incredibly fragile.
Yeah, completely fragile.
Like, they might look smart in a spreadsheet or, I don't know, a boardroom, but they just shatter the moment they come face to face with the sheer force of nature, or what he refers to as the way of heaven. So the core argument here is that our obsessive overcalculation isn't just a waste of time, it's a profound psychological blindness. It's essentially an invitation for the universe to just humble us.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly understand this blindness, we have to look at how the illusion of control plays out at the highest possible stakes.
The world stage.
Exactly. Going back to military history, the author brings up the legendary story of Zhu Guiliang. And for those who don't know, this guy is one of the most brilliant strategists in Chinese history.
Oh, absolutely. He's the archetype of the genius who sits in a tent and wins a war 1,000 miles away.
Right, he's basically the patron saint of calculation. A man who allegedly factored in the psychology of his enemies, the exact topography of the battlefield, the precise timing of troop movements.
He calculated everything.
Everything. So Zhu Guiliang sets this inescapable, brilliant trap for his bitter rival, Sima Yi, in a place called Shangfang Valley. He uses the terrain to box Sima Yi in, and then he introduces fire. Right. The flames are roaring, the exits are blocked, and Sima Yi is dead to rights. He is completely out of options. Within the realm of human logic, Zhu Liang's calculation is completely flawless.
But, and this is key, that is the fatal flaw right there.
Yeah.
It was flawless within the realm of human logic.
Right.
Because when we plan, we naturally operate in what systems theorists call a closed system. We draw a box around the problem.
Like, here are the borders.
Exactly. We say, here is the valley, here is the fire, here are the troops. But reality is an open system. It's infinitely complex and entirely unbound by the borders of our little strategic map.
And reality totally intrudes on Zhu Liang's closed system in the form of a sudden, bizarre, completely unseasonal torrential downpour.
Just out of nowhere.
The sky just opens up, the rain completely extinguishes this raging inferno, the trap evaporates, Sima Yi walks right out, and Zhu Liang is just left standing in the mud.
Wow.
And he famously sighs and says, "Man proposes, God disposes, it cannot be forced."
And that sigh, I mean, that is the sound of human hubris collapsing.
Totally.
And we see this exact same psychological blind spot outside of warfare, too. It extends right into our greatest engineering triumphs. Look at the Titanic, which the essay also highlights.
The so-called unsinkable ship.
Precisely. And why did they believe it was unsinkable? Because the engineers spent years calculating the math inside a blueprint.
Right. The closed system again?
Yeah. They designed watertight compartments, they established state-of-the-art safety protocols, they calculated the tensile strength of the steel, they mastered that closed system.
Whoa.
But they completely forgot that the ship had to operate in the open ocean, a chaotic, uncaring void where a silent, floating piece of ancient ice can simply tear all that math to pieces.
It's like spending 5 years building the world's most sophisticated AI-driven, flawlessly coded weather prediction app. And the very first time you pull your phone out to check the forecast, the device gets instantly struck by lightning.
That is exactly it.
The universe just doesn't care about your code. But, okay, I have to push back here for a second. Because if we follow this logic to its extreme, why do anything?
Right. Why even try?
Yeah. Isn't planning essential for civilization to function? I mean, we need architects to calculate load-bearing walls. We need farmers to calculate crop rotations. So where does the author draw the line between necessary, responsible preparation and this, like, foolish, fatal arrogance?
What's fascinating here is that Xu Feng isn't advocating for total passivity.
Okay.
He isn't saying we should throw away our blueprints or, stop planting crops. The distinction he draws is entirely psychological. It is about the arrogance of certainty.
The arrogance.
Yeah. So necessary preparation is saying, I have built this bridge to withstand a Category 5 hurricane and I hope it holds. Hubris is saying, I have conquered the wind, this bridge cannot fall.
Oh, wow.
When we start believing that our sheer intellect can guarantee an outcome, that is when calculation turns toxic. It's this delusion that we have mastered all the variables, when the reality is that the most massive variables, the weather, cosmic timing, sheer entropy, they are completely out of our hands.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if these grand, world-shifting calculations fail so spectacularly against the forces of nature, what happens when we shrink this philosophy down? Because, most of us aren't commanding armies or building ocean liners.
Right, right.
How does this apply to our daily interpersonal lives?
Well, the micro level is actually where this philosophy gets incredibly penetrating. If grand calculation fails against the physical universe, micro calculation fails against the social and karmic universe.
Ah, okay. And the author illustrates this with a highly relatable, honestly kind of hilarious anecdote from his own childhood.
Oh, the fish story.
Yes, the fish story. So he talks about being a kid in his village, going out to catch fish with a group of friends. And there was this one boy, a few years older, who everyone considered to be the shrewd one.
The smart, calculating guy of the group.
Exactly. So the kids catch their fish, build a little fire in a field, and start roasting them. And this shrewd kid figures out a way to optimize the situation entirely for himself.
Right. He runs a very specific kind of behavioral calculation.
He does. He volunteers to be the official taste tester to make sure the fish are fully cooked before anyone else is allowed to eat.
How generous of him.
Right. So he takes a bite. Nope, not quite ready. Wait a minute, takes another bite. Still needs a little more time. And by the time he officially declares the fish safe for consumption, he has personally eaten more than half of the group's entire catch.
Now, if you analyze the specific type of intelligence at play there, in a very narrow, purely Darwinian short-term sense, it's brilliant.
It is.
He maximized his caloric intake with minimal physical labor. He hacked the system.
But he failed to calculate the long-term social cost. The other kids weren't stupid. They watched him eat all their food under the guise of helping them. So the immediate result was that they just stopped playing with him. He completely isolated himself.
Yep.
But the kicker from the essay is that decades later, the author hears about this exact same boy, who's now an older man, and he is entirely impoverished, completely alone, and just struggling to survive.
Wow.
And the author draws a direct, uncompromising line between the man's lifelong misery and the dishonest, hyper-calculating nature he demonstrated around that campfire.
Because human calculation is always fundamentally incomplete. We literally cannot hold enough variables in our heads.
Right, you can't see the whole board.
No, that boy calculated his immediate hunger, but he couldn't calculate the compounding interest of a ruined reputation over 30 years.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And Xu Feng scales this exact psychological profile back up to the adult world, pointing to the hundreds of high-ranking corrupt officials sitting in prisons today.
Which, these are objectively highly intelligent people.
Incredibly intelligent. Bureau and department-level officials who were smart enough to scheme, flatter, and calculate their way to the very top of the political and social hierarchy. They successfully hacked a massive bureaucracy.
Right.
But the exact same toxic shrewdness that propelled them to the top was the mechanism that ultimately locked them in a cage. They calculated their way right into a prison cell.
So where'd the line then between healthy ambition, like the kind of drive that pushes society forward, builds businesses, creates art, and the kind of toxic shrewdness the author is warning us about?
It really comes down to the nature of the extraction. Healthy ambition builds value, right? toxic shrewdness extracts it.
Okay, yeah.
The author's view is that cleverness and shrewdness are just cheap intellectual parlor tricks. When your calculation is entirely based on outsmarting others, extracting value from your peers, or bending the rules like eating your friend's fish or taking bribes, you inevitably trigger a systemic immune response.
An immune response.
Yes. Society, or the cosmos, eventually expels you. True intelligence aligns with natural honesty. Shrewdness isolates you and inevitably destroys you.
Okay, that makes perfect sense when we were talking about deceitful planning. Bad karma yields bad results.
Right.
But what about totally innocent life planning? Let's say I have no interest in extracting value from anyone. I'm not stealing fish. I'm not embezzling state funds. I just want to plan a nice, quiet, secure life for myself and my family.
Sure, the standard dream.
Yeah. But the essay argues that even this basic, wholesome life trajectory is largely a delusion of control.
It is, because the entire foundation of your existence is built on variables you never had any say in to begin with.
Right. And the ultimate modern example of this, which he mentions, is COVID-19.
Oh, perfect example.
Think about the innocent calculation. You work hard for a decade, you save your money honestly, you sit down with a spreadsheet, and you plan the perfect, well-deserved global vacation.
You book the flights, calculate the currency exchange.
Exactly. Reserve the hotels. It is a flawless, completely innocent plan. And then a microscopic virus jumps species on the other side of the planet. The entire global economy shuts down, and you literally cannot step outside your front door to buy groceries. The plan is instantly vaporized.
And this raises a really important question about our baseline assumptions of autonomy. You know, we agonize over the 5% of our lives we can somewhat influence, completely ignoring the 95% that was decided for us before we could even speak.
Oh, that's heavy.
Xufeng lists these profound, uncontrollable variables. I mean, you did not calculate your birth date. You couldn't calculate the historical era you were born into.
Right. You can't calculate your way into being born in peacetime versus wartime.
Exactly. You didn't calculate your genetics, your ethnicity, or your initial family environment. You couldn't strategize your way into being born to a wealthy family in a developed nation.
You just show up.
You just show up. And crucially, you cannot calculate the random encounters you will have. You don't know who will bump into you on a sidewalk and change the entire trajectory of your career or your romantic life.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the way we usually talk about life strategy is by comparing it to a game of chess.
Right, the ultimate game of calculation.
Exactly. In chess, the board is perfectly square. You can see every single piece. The rules never change. And if you are smart enough, you can calculate 15 moves ahead to a guaranteed victory.
But life isn't chess.
Not at all. Based on this essay, it's more like you are tasked with engineering a flawless, high-speed bullet train. You spend years perfecting the aerodynamics, the engine efficiency, the exact timetable.
Sounds exhausting.
It is, but then you are laying the tracks for this perfect train directly over a series of highly active tectonic plates.
Oh, wow.
Right, you have absolutely no control over the earthquakes, and yet we spend all our time stressing out over the aerodynamics.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, recognizing the tectonic plates isn't supposed to be depressing.
It isn't.
No, it is meant to be profoundly liberating. Think about it. The anxiety of the modern world comes from this crushing illusion that if we just think harder, if we optimize our morning routines enough, if we plan perfectly, we can completely insulate ourselves from pain, failure, or unpredictability.
Like we can control everything if we just try hard enough.
Exactly. But Xufeng is essentially granting us permission to put that burden down. You couldn't control your starting coordinates, you cannot control the weather, and you cannot control the tectonic plates. So why are you walking around carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders?
Which brings us to the ultimate pivot of the essay. We've established that aggressive calculation is futile because nature always holds the trump card.
Right.
And we've established it's dangerous because it isolates us socially. So what is the alternative? If we're supposed to drop the burden of meticulous planning, how does the author actually suggest we navigate our time on Earth?
He offers essentially a two-part antidote. There is the grounded, earthly advice, and then there is a massive, mind-bending shift in cosmic perspective.
Okay, let's start on the ground.
Right.
He basically says, stop exhausting yourself. Stop the obsessive, hyper-competitive grinding. He specifically targets the ancient mindset of studying so hard you tie your hair to the roof beam to keep from falling asleep.
which is a very real historical reference, by the way.
Yeah. He says to stop flattering your bosses for a microscopic promotion and stop staying up all night agonizing over stock market trends just to hoard wealth you can't take with you.
Because it's all just a closed system.
Exactly. Instead, he suggests viewing life as a temporary trip, a dream, a game you are just visiting.
And the core mandate he presents here is to replace calculating with sowing.
Sowing seeds.
Yes, following the natural way. Instead of trying to extract a specific outcome from the universe, you simply sow seeds of truth, goodness, beauty, love, faith, and honesty.
I love that.
And his rule for this game of life is incredibly elegant. Basically, as long as you are not harming others, as long as you are not harming society, and as long as you are not harming the natural environment, you should play freely. You should navigate the world with grace, experiencing the trip without trying to put it in a chokehold.
I really love the simplicity of that. But then, and this is where it gets wild, the essay takes this sudden, massive spiritual leap.
It really does.
He goes from just be a good person and enjoy the ride
Mm-hmm.
to full-blown metaphysical architecture.
Yeah.
He introduces the concept that if you truly master these mysteries of life and karma, you become aware of what he calls 23-dimensional worlds and 36-dimensional spaces.
The text moves deeply into the metaphysical here, suggesting a vast structured cosmos that our physical senses can barely comprehend.
Right, and he says that once you actually perceive this massive cosmic architecture, your earthly ambitions just evaporate. Like, you won't even want to be a wildly successful human anymore.
The whole game changes.
Oh, totally. The goal shifts from grinding out a promotion on Earth to becoming an immortal or a Buddha heading toward heaven where life is infinite and brilliant.
Yeah.
He says taking this Chanyuan, which translates to a Zen yard or Zen path, is far easier and much more natural than surviving the human rat race.
It is a profound escalation of his thesis. He is offering a total recontextualization of existence.
Now, I really have to push back here
Yeah.
because 36-dimensional spaces,
I know, it's a lot.
that is a staggering leap from the earthly advice of don't eat your friend's cooked fish.
Fair point.
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of you, the listener. How does someone practically apply a 36-dimensional mindset to a Tuesday morning commute when they are late for a meeting? It sounds incredibly abstract.
It is abstract, but we have to understand the dimensional concept as the ultimate psychological tool for zooming out.
Okay, zooming out. How so?
Think about how dimensions work in physics. In a one-dimensional world, a line is your entire reality. You cannot see past it. In a two-dimensional world, you can move around the line. In a three-dimensional world, you can simply step over it. As you move up in dimensions, the catastrophic obstacles of the lower dimensions cease to exist as barriers.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense.
So apply that to human anxiety. When you are stuck in traffic on a Tuesday morning, or when you are staring at a passive-aggressive email from a colleague, your psychological world has essentially collapsed into a single dimension.
Yes.
Your entire reality is tightly zoomed in on the immediate calculation of your ego, your immediate status, your immediate frustration. To you, that email is a massive brick wall.
Right, I'm sitting there burning calories trying to calculate the absolute perfect combination of professional and defensive words to use in my reply.
Yeah.
It feels like life or death.
Precisely. But by framing your life within a massive, eternal, 36-dimensional cosmos, whether you choose to take his architecture literally or just as a profound metaphor, it violently shrinks your daily anxieties.
It just puts it all in perspective.
If you can conceptually step into a higher dimension, you are suddenly looking down at that email or that traffic jam or that 2% raise you didn't get. And from that vantage point, it's not a brick wall anymore. It's not even a speck of dust.
It is nothing.
It is nothing. This framework is a cognitive tool that forces you to realize your earthly struggles are just a fleeting, microscopic blip in an infinite universe. And in the vastness of that realization, you find the permission to finally relax.
Wow. You zoom out to 36 dimensions just to realize the email doesn't matter. It sounds extreme, but honestly, it is incredibly effective.
It breaks the spell. The sheer scale of the cosmos pulls you completely out of the maze of human calculation.
So to synthesize this incredible journey we've been on today, we started by looking at the grand hubris of history. We saw how unseasonal rain and floating icebergs can effortlessly destroy the most meticulously calculated plans of military geniuses and master engineers.
The closed system versus the open system.
Exactly. We examine the micro-traps of our everyday lives, where shrewdly optimizing a campfire meal or embezzling funds might yield a short-term gain, but ultimately triggers a karmic backlash that leaves you isolated or imprisoned.
Right.
And we confronted the humbling reality that the most foundational aspects of our existence, our birth, our genetics, the historical era we inhabit, and the random pandemics that halt our lives, they are entirely uncontrollable.
The overarching, inescapable lesson of the text is that human calculation is inherently fragile, and the way of heaven or nature always holds the final authority.
And what that means is that true freedom does not come from tightening your grip. It doesn't come from building a better spreadsheet or getting better at controlling every possible outcome.
No.
True freedom comes from surrendering the need to control. It comes from trusting the natural way, sowing seeds of honesty and goodness, and treating this incredibly brief human experience as a graceful, temporary game rather than a war to be won.
Which raises an important question for everyone listening about how they want to spend their limited energy.
Exactly. So, to you listening right now, the very next time you feel that familiar, crushing weight in your chest because you are trying to meticulously map out your career path or perfectly engineer a relationship or control the trajectory of your life, I want you to remember that you are largely navigating ocean currents and tectonic plates that are vastly beyond your control.
Vastly.
And that realization should not make you panic. It is a profound invitation to relax. It is cosmic permission to stop obsessing over the aerodynamics of the train.
Which brings us to a final, deeply grounding thought drawn directly from the end of Shuofeng's essay.
Oh, yeah.
He references the famous proverb, "Man thinks, God laughs," but he attaches a very visceral physical reality to it. He points out that no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how many rivals you outsmart or how much wealth you calculate your way into hoarding, every single human being is ultimately equal in the face of death.
Death is the absolute, uncalculable equalizer that zeroes out every single spreadsheet.
It is the ultimate boundary of the closed system.
Wow. Yeah.
So the question you must ask yourself is this. If your ultimate destination is going to be exactly the same as the person who never meticulously planned a single thing in their entire life, how much of your current, daily, agonizing stress is actually serving you?
That is a heavy thing to sit with. But it is also incredibly freeing. Because at the end of the day, you can spend your entire life locked inside a windowless room, exhaustingly trying to build the perfect, foolproof machine to control your reality.
Yeah.
But you can never, ever stop the wind from blowing through the cracks.
Yeah, you can.
So you might as well step outside and enjoy the breeze.